old man, go away. Please get out of my sight. This is no place for you lazy, idle people to come and bother me." The voice of Officer Chad Miller, the young police officer on duty at the Oak Haven Police Department's reception desk, rang out sharply, full of annoyance and impatience. His rough hand, with its stubby fingers, waved roughly, shooing away an old black man who was standing patiently and somewhat timidly in front of the high glass counter, an invisible barrier between law enforcement and the people. The old man, his hair as white as cotton, not a single black strand left, his back slightly bent from the burden of age and years of hard work. But his eyes, despite the deep crow's feet at the corners, still retained a rare brilliance and brightness. He spoke in a slow, gentle, and somewhat pleading voice, a voice tinged with time. "Officer, my name is Elijah Washington. I live on the East Side. I'm here to report a recent petty theft in my neighborhood, something I thought you might be able to help with." Officer Chad Miller, without waiting for the old man to finish his sentence, interrupted him harshly, without the slightest courtesy. A sneer, full of mockery and superiority, was evident on his face, still quite young but already tinged with discontent and arrogance. "Petty theft?" he repeated, his voice full of sarcasm. "Or are you going to make up some excuse, some touching story, to get in here to beg for food, to ask for a place to sleep for the night in this cold weather? Let me tell you, so you don't have to waste your time acting, this is the Oak Haven Police Department, a solemn place to enforce the law. Not a poorhouse or a hospice for vagrants, homeless people, lazy people who don't want to work." With that, without a moment's hesitation, without a moment's thought about the consequences of his actions, he reached for the full glass of water, a disposable paper cup, that was sitting right on his desk, and with a quick, sudden, and malicious movement, he threw all of that cold water straight into the face of old Elijah Washington. The icy water streamed down his wrinkled, haggard face, down his mustache that had faded over the years, and soaked the old, frayed shirt he was wearing. The coldness of the water, combined with the shock and humiliation, made the old man stagger slightly. Such a cruel act, such a public and completely inhumane humiliation, coming from a man wearing the uniform of a law enforcement officer, a man who should have the responsibility to protect, help, and respect the people, especially the elderly and the weak. Will it stop there? When injustice has been pushed to its peak? How will the poor old man, who only wanted to do a good deed, a chivalrous act for his neighbor, react to this humiliation and cruel, inhumane treatment? And does the young, reckless, arrogant, and prejudiced policeman have any idea that he has just made an irreparable mistake? A mistake that will cost him a very high price, a price that could ruin his entire future in the coming days. The old black man standing there, enduring the humiliation, was Elijah Eli Washington, who had turned 75 this year. He was a widower, his wife having died of a serious illness more than a decade ago. Since then, he had lived alone in a small, simple, weathered wooden house, tucked away in a quiet, low-traffic alley in a working-class neighborhood on the east side of Oak Haven. He lived mainly on his meager military pension, after deducting the monthly medical expenses for his age-related illnesses, and occasionally received sincere help and sharing from kind neighbors who considered him a member of their family. Everyone in this neighborhood, from the elderly people his age to the children growing up, loved and respected Eli. They loved him not only for his gentleness, virtue, kindness, and willingness to help others, but also for the fascinating stories, the heroic memories of his glorious youth that he sometimes shared with the children in the neighborhood on hot summer afternoons, under the shade of the old oak tree at the end of the alley. Stories about battles, about comradeship, about courage, always attracted the children in a strange way. But there was one thing that very few people in Oakhaven, even the closest neighbors, knew fully and in detail. It was a glorious past, a golden history, but also full of pain and loss that Mr. Eli always kept hidden deep in his heart, like a sacred keepsake, an inseparable part of his life. Mr. Elijah Washington is a veteran of the United States Army, who participated in the most fierce and brutal years of the Vietnam War as a medic, a brave, courageous, and compassionate angel in white, belonging to the legendary 1st Air Cavalry Division, the Red Big Brother Division, a unit famous for its daring helicopter combat in fierce battles, amidst the rain of bombs and bullets of the enemy, amidst the roar of planes and the deafening explosions of artillery shells. He did not fear the danger to his life, repeatedly rushing into the midst of the fire and bullets to save the lives of countless wounded comrades, bringing them back from death to life. Among the young soldiers he had saved in a tragic battle, a battle in which their entire unit was almost wiped out, at a place called Khe Sanh, on a summer day long ago, was a young white lieutenant, fresh out of officer school, named Marcus Reynolds, who later, with talent, tireless efforts, and a little luck, became the respected chief of police, respected by many of the people of Oakhaven of the present city. Mr. Eli had never boasted about his glorious achievements or his glorious past to anyone. He quietly kept the noble medals awarded by the state, the yellowed, time-stained souvenir photos, and the affectionate letters from his old comrades in an old, intricately carved oak box placed solemnly in a corner of his small living room as a way to remember an unforgettable time. The reason Mr. Eli Washington showed up at the Oakhaven Police Department late that afternoon, looking somewhat disheveled and austere, was not because of anything personal. His next-door neighbors, a family of Mexican immigrants, poor and honest, had just had their old rickety bicycle broken into the night before. It was not just any bicycle, it was the sole means of transportation for the husband, the sole breadwinner of the family, who toiled in a factory dozens of miles away. Losing his bike meant he would probably lose his job, and the family, which included his wife and 3 small children, would be in even more dire straits. Mr. Eli, with the chivalrous spirit and compassion of an old soldier, a person who had witnessed too much pain and loss, could not ignore the difficult situation of his neighbor. He decided to represent them, go to the police department to report the incident, with a faint hope that the police could investigate and find the bicycle, the precious property lost for his poor neighbor. Mr. Eli's appearance at this time looked really austere and somewhat haggard, not at all like the image of a hero of the past. His body was thin and bony. His back was slightly bent due to the burden of age and the lingering effects of old wounds from the war that often tormented him every time the weather changed. He wore a striped shirt that was frayed at the shoulders. The collar had turned the color of kanji, and beige khaki pants that were also faded and old over the years. At his feet was a pair of old leather shoes, the soles worn out, but he still cleaned them carefully and thoroughly every day. His face was gentle and kind, with deep wrinkles like furrows in a dry field, evidence of a life full of storms and hardships. But his eyes, although no longer as clear as before, still shone with a determination, a clarity and a certain sadness, a distant and indescribable distance. Officer Chad Miller, the police officer on duty who was giving Eli Washington a hard time, was about 30 years old, white, had graduated from the police academy and had been working at the Oakhaven Police Department for 5 years. During that time, he was known in the department not for his outstanding achievements in fighting crime, but for his lazy work attitude, his arrogant and authoritarian style towards people, especially the elderly, the poor, and those from the black community. He always looked down on his job at the reception desk, thinking it was a trivial and boring job, with no opportunity to show authority or earn extra money. The annual salary of a low-ranking police officer like him was only about $60,000, and he always felt dissatisfied and frustrated with it, thinking that he deserved a better, more prosperous life. Prejudice and disrespect for others, especially the vulnerable, seemed to be deeply ingrained in Chad Miller's mind and subconscious. He has strong, negative, and completely unfounded prejudices about black people and the elderly. In his eyes, they are often annoying, whining, unreasonable, and undeserving of respect, kindness, and courtesy. He often uses rude, inappropriate, and even discriminatory words and actions toward people who come to the police station to report incidents or seek help. However, up to now, he has not been severely dealt with, perhaps due to the cover-up and tolerance of some superiors who have good relationships with his family, a family with a bit of reputation in the city, or perhaps because the victims, for fear of retaliation, fear of being made more difficult, have not dared to officially and strongly complain. Officer Chad Miller's mood when the incident with Mr. Eli Washington happened that afternoon was not very good, if not very bad. That morning, he had just had a heated argument with his capricious girlfriend about money and luxurious vacation plans that he could not meet. In addition, having to take on a long, boring, and tiring night shift alone at the reception desk made his mood more irritable, frustrated, and upset than ever. And Mr. Eli Washington, with his austere appearance, old clothes, and nonsense proposal of a bicycle theft, accidentally became a perfect target, a punching bag for him to vent all his anger, all the resentment that was pent up and boiling inside him. Returning to the tense and unjust situation taking place at the Oak Haven Police Department's duty station, Mr. Elijah Washington, though drenched from head to toe in cold water, his whole body shivering from cold and humiliation, still tried to stay calm and explained his purpose once again to the young police officer. His voice was still calm and polite, without any resentment or anger, although inside him, a wave of indignation was beginning to rise. "Officer, let me repeat once again. I am actually here to report a criminal case. This is a very important matter for my neighbor, a very poor and honest family. They are in dire need of your help." Officer Chad Miller not only did not show any remorse for his inhumane actions, but on the contrary, he burst out laughing loudly, a laugh full of contempt, savagery, and mockery. "Important? Just losing a broken old bicycle, a tattered bicycle, and you dare to call it important? You're really wasting my precious time. Old man, now go home right now. Don't stand here nagging and bothering others, or I'll call someone to take you straight to the city's mental hospital for disturbing public order and showing signs of mental instability," he shouted, his voice full of threats. Mrs. Maria Rodriguez, a middle-aged Hispanic woman who was at the police station to do some administrative paperwork related to renewing her husband's driver's license, witnessed the whole thing from beginning to end. She was very indignant at the young police officer's cruel and abusive behavior towards a poor old man. However, she did not dare to speak up or defend him, for fear that she would be made difficult, afraid of getting into unnecessary trouble with the police, whom she always felt a certain amount of fear. She could only silently shake her head, her eyes revealing sympathy for Mr. Elijah Washington, despite being humiliated and treated extremely cruelly, still tried to maintain the dignity and self-respect of an old soldier, a person who had faced death many times. "You should not, and are not allowed to treat the people who come here to seek help from you in that way, officer. We came here because we still have a little faith in you, faith in the fairness and strictness of the law. Don't let us down." Mr. Eli's straightforward, sincere, but also meaningful reminder seemed to have added fuel to the fire of anger that was smoldering and increasingly burning fiercely in Officer Chad Miller's heart. He felt like he was being lectured by a poor, ragged black man, something he could never accept, an insult to his reputation as a police officer. He moved closer, so close that Mr. Eli could feel his breath reeking of cigarette smoke and his anger. He pointed his finger straight at Mr. Eli's face, his voice full of threats and challenges. "Shut your stinking mouth right now. What the hell do you, a dirty, lowly person, a scum of society, know to dare to lecture me? Get out of here before I really run out of patience and show you, make you taste the pain." Being treated so cruelly, having his dignity and honor severely insulted, Mr. Elijah Washington could no longer maintain his silence and patience. He could not allow this kind of wrongdoing, abuse, and inhumanity to continue, not only to himself today, but also to other innocent, vulnerable people who might be the next victims of people like Chad Miller in the future. He had to do something, however small, to stop this injustice. "You will certainly have to answer for all your reckless actions and words today, Officer." Mr. Eli Washington's voice no longer had the gentle, resigned tone it had before. It became steely, tough, and contained something very strange, a hidden power, a determination that could not be underestimated, causing Officer Chad Miller, despite being very aggressive and complacent, to feel a little uneasy, a little surprised and a little vaguely worried. Mr. Eli Washington, with an unexpected dignity, boldly requested to meet the chief of police of the Oak Haven City Police Department, or at least the highest authority present at the department at that time to resolve the incident. This request made Officer Chad Miller even more angry, contemptuous, and a little amused. He thought that this old black man was really acting recklessly, deliberately causing trouble, not knowing his own strength and having illusions about his position. He could not have imagined that this seemingly unreasonable request would be the beginning of his downfall. Officer Chad Miller let out a sneer of derision and contempt. "See the chief of police? Who do you think you are? Some big shot in town, to demand to see him in person. Let me tell you, our chief of police has 101 important things to do. Important things to do with the safety and security of the entire city. And he doesn't have time to entertain a ragged, old troublemaker like you." He was about to step out of the booth, intending to use force once more to kick Mr. Eli out of the police station. But at that moment, another police officer, who looked much older than Miller and had a sergeant's rank on his lapel, had just returned from patrol outside the area. Seeing the unusual noise and tension at the reception desk, Sergeant Peters, that officer's name, stopped to ask about the situation. "What's going on here, Miller? Why are you so loud and disruptive?" Officer Chad Miller, seeing his superior appear, quickly changed his attitude immediately. He tried to appear as if he was in charge and was handling the situation properly, while trying to explain in the most beneficial way for himself. "No, it's nothing serious. Sergeant Peters, it's just that this old man is standing here bothering me, refusing to leave despite my many explanations and requests. He even wants to see the chief of police." Elijah Washington, seeing that someone who seemed more knowledgeable and authoritative had appeared, calmly explained the whole incident to Sergeant Peters, including the fact that Officer Chad Miller had thrown a glass of cold water on him for no reason and with malice. Sergeant Peters listened attentively, then looked at Officer Chad Miller with a look of disapproval and a bit of reproach on his face. However, it seemed that he did not want to make a big deal out of this, did not want to cause unnecessary trouble during his shift, and perhaps had some respect for Miller's family. "Okay, sir," Sergeant Peters said to Mr. Eli, his tone somewhat conciliatory and wanting to let the matter go. "If there is anything, you just write a detailed report, and we will consider it and have someone handle it according to the correct procedure. Now it is quite dark. Please go home and rest well. We will take care of your matter." But Mr. Elijah Washington shook his head firmly. Without a moment's hesitation, No, Sergeant, I can't go back. I need to see Chief Marcus Reynolds right here, right now. I have something very important to say, something I can only say to him in person. And I'm sure that once he knows who I am, he'll want to see me. The strange determination, the confident and somewhat mysterious demeanor of the old black man made Sergeant Peters feel a little surprised, a little curious, and a little confused. You have some kind of relationship with our Chief Reynolds. Sir? Mr. Eli Washington did not answer the sergeant's question directly. He just said calmly, his voice still calm, "Please tell him that Elijah Washington, an old friend, wants to see him. I believe he will understand immediately." Officer Chad Miller, who had been standing next to him all this time, continued to make sarcastic, contemptuous, and malicious comments. And he even pretended to know the chief of police. There is really no cure for this kind of senile old man. He must have been delusional because he watched too many movies. Sergeant Peters, although he still had many doubts and skepticism in his heart when he saw Mr. Eli's extremely serious, determined, and unwavering attitude, along with the name Elijah Washington that he had just mentioned in a meaningful way, decided to try calling the chief of police's private office. After briefly explaining the situation at the reception desk and the old man's urgent request, he was surprised, almost unable to believe his ears, when he heard the voice of Chief Marcus Reynolds on the other end of the line suddenly become urgent, emotional, somewhat unbelievable, and even a little shaky. "Elijah Washington? Is that Uncle Eli? Oh my God. Where is he? Just down the duty hall? Tell him to wait for me a moment, just a moment. Don't let him go anywhere. I'll be right down." Sergeant Peters hung up, then looked at Mr. Eli Washington with a completely different look, a look filled with extreme surprise, unconcealed curiosity, and a bit of respect, mixed with confusion. "Mr. Washington, Chief Marcus Reynolds said he would be down to see you now. Please wait a moment." Officer Chad Miller, who had been standing there smiling arrogantly, now stood frozen, his whole body stiff. He could not believe what he had just heard. What? The chief. He said he would be down here. To see this ragged old man? No way. There must be some mistake here. A vague fear, a foreboding feeling began to creep into his mind only a few short minutes later. Chief Marcus Mac Reynolds, a white man in his 50s, tall, sturdy, and with a kind, determined face, quickly walked down the main hall of the police station from the stairs. As soon as he saw Mr. Eli Washington, who was standing quietly in a corner of the hall, soaking wet and shivering from the cold, the sheriff's usually stern and authoritative face suddenly relaxed strangely. His eyes lit up with an indescribable joy, an indescribable emotion, and a little bit of disbelief. "Uncle Eli, oh my God, it's really you! I can't believe I'm meeting you here, under these circumstances!" Sheriff Reynolds almost shouted, then walked quickly, without any hesitation or shyness, and opened his arms to hug the wet and shivering old black man, not paying any attention to his old, dirty clothes and his wet body. "We haven't seen each other for a long time, haven't we, Uncle Eli? I've been trying to contact you but couldn't. What important business did you have here that you didn't call me an hour in advance so I could come out to greet you properly?" Mr. Eli Washington smiled kindly, a warm, sincere smile that seemed to dispel some of the fatigue and humiliation on his haggard face. "Hello, Mac. Long time no see. You still look healthy, handsome, and dignified. I just have a small matter to report for my neighbor. I dare not disturb your busy work." The entire Oak Haven Police Department's duty hall was silent at that moment. Not a sound. All the police officers present, including Sergeant Peters, who had just spoken on the phone with the chief of police, were stunned, bewildered, and unable to understand what was really happening before their eyes. Officer Chad Miller's face was as pale as a banana leaf. His mouth gaped open, unable to speak. His limbs began to shake uncontrollably. He vaguely realized that he had made an unimaginable mistake, a terrible mistake that could ruin his entire career and future. It was only then that Chief Marcus Reynolds took a closer look at the pitiful state of Eli Washington, whom he had always respected as a father figure and a mentor. "Uncle Eli, why are you so wet? You look so tired and cold. Who did what to you? Who dared to treat you like this?" His eyes immediately became cold and angry as he looked towards the counter, where Officer Chad Miller stood like a stone statue, his face drained of blood. Mr. Elijah Washington, although initially did not want to make a big deal out of it, did not want to cause unnecessary trouble for his nephew, whom he always considered his own son. But before the intense questioning and the concerned, worried eyes of Police Chief Marcus Reynolds, and the anger and humiliation that was rising in his heart after what he had just experienced, he finally could not remain silent anymore. He recounted the entire incident in detail, clearly, from the unreasonable and prejudiced refusal to accept his report by Officer Chad Miller, being insulted with derogatory and discriminatory words, to being maliciously and inhumanly splashed with a glass of cold water. Ms. Maria Rodriguez, a Hispanic woman, after a moment of hesitation and consideration, also bravely stood up to testify to Mr. Eli's words, confirming all the wrongdoings of the young police officer. After listening, Chief Marcus Reynolds' face turned red with anger, his eyes bulging. He turned to look at Officer Chad Miller, who was trembling like a leaf, trying to shrink himself to avoid his superior's angry gaze. The chief's voice roared, echoing throughout the duty hall, causing everyone present to shiver. "Miller, do you know what a bastard you just did? Do you know who the man you just insulted, the man you just inhumanly splashed water on his face is?" "Huh?" Officer Chad Miller stuttered, his voice filled with extreme fear and pitifully late remorse. Sir, I really don't know. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry to him. I deserve to die." "Apologize?" Chief Marcus Reynolds shouted, his voice hoarse from anger and rising emotion. "Can your apology now erase the humiliation and hurt you have caused him? The person you just treated so cruelly, worse than an animal, is my savior. Do you know that? The person who gave birth to me a second time in this world, in that fierce battle, that hell on earth in Khe-San years ago. If it weren't for Uncle Eli here, a brave medic, a silent hero, who risked his life, single-handedly rushed into the rain of bombs and bullets from the enemy to pull me out of the helicopter that was burning fiercely after being shot down, I wouldn't have the chance to stand here today as your police chief. Do you understand that? Huh?" The entire Oak Haven City Police Department seemed to fall silent after the emotional and indignant words of the respected police chief. No one could have guessed that the old black man, who had just been treated so badly and unjustly, had such a glorious past, was a true war hero, and had such a special relationship, such a deep affection for their leader. Police Chief Marcus Reynolds, without hesitation or respect, ordered the immediate suspension of Officer Chad Miller, pending the results of the investigation and disciplinary action at the highest level possible, according to the regulations of the department. "You," he said to Miller, his voice full of contempt and disappointment, "you will pay a very high price, a price you will never forget, for your racist, abusive, and inhumane behavior today. You have tarnished the image of the People's Police." He then personally helped Mr. Eli Washington, who was still shivering with cold and emotion, up to his private office on the second floor. He kindly had someone bring a towel and a clean, intact set of clothes for Mr. Eli to change into. He also carefully called his family doctor to come and check on Mr. Eli's general health, making sure that he had not suffered any serious physical damage from the shock and mistreatment he had just experienced. He sat down next to Mr. Eli, tightly holding his benefactor's wrinkled, bony hand, filled with gratitude and shame. An internal investigation into Officer Chad Miller's entire misconduct had been ordered by Chief Marcus Reynolds to be conducted urgently, seriously, and without any restrictions, with the detailed, clear testimony of Mr. Elijah Washington, Ms. Maria Rodriguez, and the admission, though reluctant and full of fear, of several other colleagues in the department about Miller's negative, arrogant work attitude and daily discriminatory behavior in the past. The evidence against him was undeniable. The Oak Haven Police Department's disciplinary committee, under the direct direction and close supervision of Chief Marcus Reynolds, who was determined to clean up the team, quickly met and made a final decision, a highly deterrent decision: permanently dismiss Officer Chad Miller from the police force, without any leniency or opportunity to correct his mistakes. But things did not stop there. With the dedicated, professional, and enthusiastic support of Ms. Sarah Chen, a young, talented, and famous female lawyer in the field of fighting for civil rights, someone that Chief Marcus Reynolds had trusted to introduce and rely on to help Mr. Eli. Mr. Elijah Washington decided to take a stronger legal action. He has officially filed a civil lawsuit in court against Chad Miller personally and the Oak Haven Police Department as the management unit that is jointly responsible for the misconduct of its subordinates, for the crimes of serious infringement of dignity, honor, causing deep mental harm and discriminatory behavior based on race and age, violating the basic rights of citizens protected by the Constitution and the law. In order to avoid a lengthy, costly lawsuit that could further damage the reputation and image of the city police force, the Oak Haven Police Department, after consulting with legal advisors and receiving instructions from superiors, has accepted to conduct mediation and agreed to compensate Mr. Elijah Washington an amount of $30,000. Chad Miller, although he has been fired and is no longer a police officer, must also bear a significant financial responsibility for this compensation, as a specific price to pay for his stupidity and wrongdoings. Police Chief Marcus Reynolds, as the head of the city's police force, on behalf of the entire Oak Haven Police Department, has made a public, sincere, and deepest apology to Mr. Elijah Washington personally and to the entire Oak Haven community for the unfortunate, shameful, and unacceptable incident that occurred right at the headquarters of the public agency. He also organized a special talk, a deeply educational political activity for the entire industry, and respectfully invited Mr. Elijah Washington to share his life story. Stories about the years of arduous, heroic fighting in the Vietnam War, about the sacred, immortal comradeship, and about the heartbreaking, sad incident that just happened. To him, to all officers and soldiers working in the police department, it is truly a very profound lesson, a profound and necessary reminder of respect for people, of gratitude to previous generations who sacrificed their blood and bones for the country, and of the spirit of serving the people selflessly, purely and devotedly, that every true police officer must always keep in mind and strive to practice. The noisy and sad incident at the Oak Haven Police Department has finally been closed fairly and satisfactorily. Chad Miller has lost everything: the career he was once proud of and despised, the honor of a man who once wore the police uniform, and has to face a huge financial burden along with the contempt and alienation of society. He has become a typical example, a living warning for the severe punishment of the law and of conscience for acts of abuse of power, corruption, and discrimination. Mr. Elijah Washington, with the compensation he received, was able to renovate his small, dilapidated wooden house to make it more spacious and cozy. He also used a large part of that money to help his poor neighbors, lonely old friends, who have always loved, protected, and shared with him over the years. More importantly than his material values, his dignity and honor, which had been brutally trampled, were fully and deservedly restored. He continued his simple, quiet, and humane life, but the story of his courage, self-respect, and noble character had strongly inspired many people in the community, especially the younger generation. Police Chief Marcus Reynolds respected, appreciated, and loved his former benefactor even more, whom he considered a father and a spiritual teacher. He was more determined than ever to build a truly clean and strong Oak Haven police force, a force that was truly serving the people, a force worthy of the trust and expectations of all the city's people. The Oak Haven City Police Department, after this shocking incident, made positive, strong and groundbreaking changes in the selection, training, fostering, and supervision of its staff. They pay special attention to the issue of training professional ethics, improving behavioral culture, communication skills with the people, and resolutely fighting, eliminating negative manifestations, authoritarianism, arrogance, and discrimination from their ranks, in order to rebuild the beautiful image of the people's police in the hearts of the public. The case of Mr. Eli Washington has caused a stir, a wave of heated debate in the Oak Haven community and neighboring areas. People were both deeply outraged by the cruel, inhumane, and unacceptable behavior of Officer Chad Miller, and deeply admired the courage, self-respect, steadfastness, and noble character of Mr. Eli. The image of the city's police chief, a white man, not hesitating to hug the old, austere black veteran right in the middle of the police station's large hall, witnessed by a large crowd, has become a beautiful symbol, an image that touches millions of hearts about warm humanity, about deep gratitude regardless of skin color, status, and about reconciliation, healing the wounds caused by prejudice and discrimination. The reputation of the Oak Haven Police Department, although somewhat affected and questioned in the early stages after the unfortunate incident, was quickly improved and significantly strengthened thanks to the decisive, public, transparent, and sincere handling of the matter by Police Chief Marcus Reynolds. People have seen the change, the openness and determination of the leaders to clean up the ranks. Never rush to judge a person based on their poor, austere appearance, the clothes they wear, or your own narrow, short-sighted personal prejudices, because every person, no matter what their circumstances, has their own value, their own story, their own past, and their own dignity that deserves to be cherished and respected. Gratitude, kindness, and compassion are extremely precious qualities, shining gems in every person's soul. And justice, although it may sometimes come a little late, will certainly never be overlooked, will never forgive those who do wrong, those who trample on the dignity and legitimate rights of others, especially the weak, and those who are wearing the uniform of law enforcement, those who are entrusted by the people with the responsibility of protecting peace and social justice, must be shining examples of morality, integrity, dedication, and absolute respect for the people, without distinction. How do you feel about the glorious, sacrificial past of Elijah Washington and the special, deeply loving relationship between him and Sheriff Marcus Reynolds? Does it change the way you view veterans? Do you think Officer Chad Miller's punishment is truly enough to deter and commensurate with his wrongdoings and inhumane actions? Do you think he should have faced other, more severe punishments, such as criminal prosecution? Does this story give you any deeper thoughts about how we should treat veterans, the elderly, minorities, and other vulnerable people in today's society? How can each of us contribute our small part to building a truly just, compassionate, united society that no longer tolerates any form of discrimination?